Hello, hello. Welcome to Mondays with Tara and Andre. We'll be starting in just a second.
Now I do.
We're live.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you? Hello, everyone.
I'm great. I'm great. Happy Monday.
Yes, it is a happy Monday.
We're doing something. Oh, oh, oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry. I'm trying something new today. We're streaming to Instagram for the first time, and you have to mute it. So I was hearing us in a delay. So hi everyone in
hello.
our private Facebook group. Let's Talk Polyamory on YouTube and today on Instagram.
Wow, everywhere in the universe.
I know. Hopefully it works. So this is Mondays with Tara and Andre. First of all, if people can hear us and you're watching, please let us know in the comments. Just say hello, give us a thumbs up or something. This is Mondays with Tara and Andre. We come here live every week at 11 a.m. Eastern, and we share our hot tips on how you can have an amazing open or polyamorous relationship like ours and the people that we work with the ultimate goal of feeling secure and connected and satisfied in your relationships. So I'm Tara. I am a relationship and awesomeness coach.
And I'm Andre. I am a registered psychotherapist.
Awesome. Okay. Well, before we jump in, someone's commented. Let's see. Oh, someone said hello. Was that you?
It sure is.
Oh, it was you. Okay, cool.
I wanted to say hello to you. Hello, everyone.
Hi. So before we jump, so today's topic is 5 steps to have a holly poly day. Ha ha ha. See what we did there? And start 2024 feeling secure. So, question out there for people who are watching either live or in the replay: are you excited for or worried about the holidays? So, give us a 1 for a hells yeah, excited, and a 2 for worried. Where do you sit on that spectrum, Andre?
That's such an interesting question because I'm not religious in any way. I don't observe any of the holidays, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, any of those things. But I understand that it is a time for a gathering and coming together. I just wish that sentiment was really held by everybody throughout the rest of the year, right? Because very often, like, oh, let's make nice and we'll come together and we can tolerate each other for this special time. And I think we should be able to do that pretty much all the time, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? But it's interesting because, for those of people who don't know, you and I, we don't necessarily come from the same place. And my relationship with your family was going well in the beginning of our relationship. And then you came out and you announced to them that you were polyamorous, and it was not well received at all. And it created a rift, and it's been some time now. And I think that essentially they know I'm a good person. I know that they're good people, and we should be able to find our way to it. But yet this issue, the announcement, the way of life, became a bone of contention, I guess, and it made for some separation. And the worst part about that really is that we didn't participate, we didn't invite enough dialogue to it, right? It is difficult to say these things. They are opposed to it and we are in favor of it, and there's probably not a lot of common ground there. But it shouldn't exclude us from having close relationships. But really, the part that I'm trying to make is that I think all of this could have been different if we would have a greater chance for communication, right? At the end of the day, it is all about communicating our different ways of being. And then saying, well, maybe we can agree to disagree. Maybe I'll never come over to your side, and that's okay. But can I tolerate your being the way that you are? Can I not love this aspect of you, but still love you? And
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a good reminder for this time of year.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, it can be a really hard time of the year for people, especially if they feel like they have members that don't necessarily agree with their relationship choices. I mean, I believe, I'd like to believe that we're at a point now where I think we could have a conversation. If you're comfortable in reintroducing you back in the family. I
Mhm.
think for my family, and I think this happens to a lot of people, we're so the monogamous way of life as the norm is so ingrained in us. And especially if there's any sort of religion
Mhm.
or, spirituality, certain spirituality, I'll clarify there. It can be really hard for people to really understand. And you don't know this because you're not with me all the time, but I do take every opportunity to remind them about how amazing you are and
With
how
you.
much you support me and all those things. And I think for my family, I think one of the things they had to do was basically relearn who I was as a human, or remember who I
Mhm.
was as a human. And my relationship choice didn't change the way it didn't change me, who I am as a person, what I value, what's important to me, and all those things. It's just a way of having relationships with other people, which in fact is actually extra loving. So, but I think that's the hard part for people to understand. They think it's all sex, 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 sex.
But you mentioned the idea of following that mono model. It reminds me of many couples. They might say, well, for Christmas, we'll go to my place. And then for Christmas Eve, we'll go to your family's place, right? And I guess that works well enough, because it's the 25th or Christmas Eve. Those are the big days. But it works well enough when it's two, right? So I will go to your place, you'll come to my place, and fine, that's right. But what happens when we are part of a throuple, right? What happens when we have three or more partners, and then how are we going to divide that time? And will it be equal, or will there be people who feel as though, well, I kind of got the short end of the stick in that, right? So
Mhm.
in a way, I guess you're at an advantage if you are solo or in a you know, monogamous relationship. It makes it a little bit easier than if you have multiple partners and you're trying to be attentive to all of them. At this time of year, maybe you get pulled a little thin in that way, right? You can't be in all places at one time.
Also, a lot of people are like closeted, and so to
Oh,
speak, about their relationships. So,
yeah.
and I think if it's like a couple that appears to be monogamous to most people,
Mhm.
but there's other people that they love and have relationships with, close relationships, it can leave those people feeling unimportant. So,
Mhm.
um, it can be a tough time. So,
Yeah, that's an excellent point, right? Because Ben, if we are in any way closeted, if it's not brought to the open, are we then simply going to be kind of put back in the closet? Are we going to not be acknowledged? And then what kind of feelings does that bring up? And without getting too much on my soapbox, it's amazing to me. I was watching Hockey Night in Canada again. If you've not been to Canada, or if you've not seen hockey, you have to check it out. But what was amazing to me is that, and I love the game, but I don't understand why they still have fighting in it. And a lot of people, they justify it, whatever. But the point that I want to make is that during the broadcast, the fight broke out, and they were showing the fight in its entirety. And they say that the fans love that, whatever. But they're showing the images of violence, and that is permissible. But yet, if the three of us were to be seen saying that we are openly loving each other, somehow that feels as though it's more dangerous, more perverse, right? Again, we see the word sex often edited, right? It'd be S exclamation point X, but war, gun, all those things aren't. So why can't we normalize it? Right? So what happens when we are part of a couple or a threesome and we have other partners? How do we participate in that, keeping it covert, as opposed to saying, well, this is who we are, and we promote love, not violence, and if you don't like it, too bad. But it's still a taboo on someone who's I regress. That's what I
Yeah,
want for Christmas. I want everybody to just be able to come out and say, love is wonderful and we can have an abundance of it. And because I love somebody else doesn't mean that it's going to take away or threaten you, that we should have a season of love.
that's an amazing holiday wish. I love that. I love it. We did, so we have talked, so people are, this is not the topic for today, but if you are thinking about coming out to family, that sort of thing, we have done a couple talks on this. I've also chronicled, like we did a pre-talk, you and I, before I came out. So that's a really good video on YouTube and in our group about what I was going to say to my family. And then there's a bit of the aftermath of that, a few videos.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a very candid conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was a tough time that we were going through. But yeah, if you're thinking about coming out or you want to come out, you're not alone in it. Right. So, if it is scary, which it could be, talk to other people who have gone through it, talk to us. There are ways of coming out and surviving it and finding out what's on the other side of it.
Awesome. Okay, I think we should jump into today's topic. It's already 11 minutes in, and we said we weren't going to make this a long one. Okay. So today's topic is 5 steps to have a holly poly day and start 2024 feeling secure. And, we were talking on topic. It was about the holidays and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. These are kind of the types of things that you have to navigate on the holidays. However, if you are looking to give yourself and maybe people that you're in relationships with an awesome gift, may we humbly self-promote our Poly Newbies course. It's a 7-module course. It's all about setting yourself up for success in opening up a relationship or becoming polyamorous, or even if you've already opened a relationship, there's all kinds of things in there that help you really set that secure foundation for your relationship. So we'll make sure we drop the link in the comments. I've been looking at other things as possible holiday gifts, and the price of this is still below those things. And actually, it's the gift that keeps giving, right? Like anytime we invest in ourselves, like I say this, I know people are gonna say, oh, you're just promoting your course, but it is a really good course. And I know that it's helped people. We have an amazing testimonial on the site from one of the recent participants. And, we just want to have that for you, but also like any investment you make in yourself, and any investment I've made in myself in the past has always paid off in the long term, no matter what the cost, from like, $25 up until like $12,000. That's how much I've spent on coaching programs, and it's always been worthwhile. This is not that much. This is way lower.
Yeah, but
Apple Watch.
Much less than Apple Watch. But you say the gift that keeps giving, and you're absolutely correct, because I find myself, the things that I've learned in doing this, they have increased the quality of my relationships throughout the year, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not as though it's a one-time off and then that's it, you've used it and it's over. But to the part of the testimonials, I think maybe I should write a testimony there, because I've gone through this work. I have felt these shifts, these transformations. My attachment style has shifted, my way of speaking towards other people, a whole bunch of different things. So maybe we should offer our own testimonies.
We should. So we'll drop the link to our Poly Newbies course, but it's pretty awesome. I love what we put together. I'm super happy with the results people are getting. So, but let's jump into today's topic. So I put together this little slide. So today we're talking all about 5 steps to have a holly poly day. And so the 5 steps, I'll put them, these are just the overview, and then we'll go over each. So reflect, review, communicate, build your toolkit or toolkits, and get support. So we'll talk about each of those individually. Mm-hmm. So let's start with number 1, reflect. This is kind of the time of year. I mean, I do this every year where you reflect back on the past year, sort of like your year in review sort of thing. Mm-hmm. What's been going on, what's come up for you, like what issues have arisen. It's a good opportunity, like in setting yourself up for the new year, to really look into any feelings that you've had of jealousy or insecurity, and what might have caused those. So really think and be curious. Like I like to say to my clients is like, be curious like a scientist. So not with judgment, right? Mm-hmm. So look back at where you've had moments where you were like super jealous or you felt really insecure, and go like, what was really going on there? And yeah, approach it with curiosity rather than judgment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct, right? Because when we do pass that judgment, it is the end of the trial, right? We've already made up all of the decisions. We've already gathered all the evidence, and that's it. And very often, unfortunately, it feels as though it's a moral judgment, right? As though we were somehow wrong, as opposed to really trying to be introspective and say, well, what was at play? What was my motive here? What was causing me to feel this way? And if we can unpack it, then we can really see what might have been at play, and we can remove the moral judgment as though we were in any way insufficient or should have done things differently. We can understand what was at play, and it's a much more forgiving approach, but also it lends itself to having a greater opportunity of exploration because we're curious about it. So be curious, be less judgmental.
Yeah. And you can also think back on, if you have a partner or partners, you could look at situations where maybe their jealousy or insecurity was triggered and what was going
Mhm.
on, and really think about if there was anything you could have done differently, or apply that compassion lens as like, I wonder why they were feeling this way.
Yeah, that's a wonderful part. So we might look to see, well, what, if anything, did we do to help promote this or cause or whatever, and what could we have done to be supportive or to minimize the impact in this way? It's wonderful to look at our part in it as well when we look at our partners.
Absolutely. So that was number one, which was reflect, and now review. Now I know we talked about review. Oh no, sorry, we missed one part of it. The other part to look at is, if you haven't looked at it before, and this is something we cover in our Poly Newbies course as well as our Polyamory Mastery program, is your attachment style and
Mhm.
how it might be influencing your relationships or how you feel within them, the level of security or jealousy as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because that will really inform us as to where we are, what goes on in relationships. So we meet somebody, and then all of a sudden, it kind of plays out in familiar patterns, and then we end up kind of where we were in the last relationship, or the relationship before that. So when we recognize these patterns, we might be able to identify them and see what the components are, and be able to then make effective changes to that, so we have a more satisfying, more secure way of relating to each other.
You used a term before that I really like, and it's like the repetition compulsion,
Hmm.
and how we're destined to sort of repeat or the same thing over and over until we resolve it. Right? Maybe that's not quite it.
No, that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, absolutely. So the repetition compulsion exists, and even when we have insight to it, even when we're aware of what's going on, that may not be sufficient to change it, right? So insight in itself is insufficient for change. We need an authentic emotional experience. So what happens is we come to find different ways of being, and then we can satisfy that repetition, and we can experience it in a different way, and we see that that too is survivable. In fact, that is enjoyable. We want that, and we allow for it. So yes, becoming aware of the repetition is the first start,
Yeah. Awesome.
and looking
Okay.
at things like attachment style can inform you into what some of those patterns might be, your tendencies towards that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because people say, like, how do I end up with the same person over and over
Mhm.
again? Right? Like this, these people that aren't good for me. It's something that you still is left to resolve. And so you're going to keep potentially repeating that pattern until you break it. So,
Mm.
okay. So now we'll go into number two, which was review. And I know we talked about review, but we're talking about here a check-in or a relationship review.
Mhm.
So assessing sort of what's, if you are in a relationship, even if you're not, like, you can also, check in on your own relationship with yourself too, to assess like any dynamics of your connections, look at how things went, if there's anything you want differently in the coming year. It's probably a good time to do this. And this setting up regular relationship reviews and check-ins is again also part of our courses. We teach the radar,
Mhm.
RAADAR model, which is inspired by Multiamory's radar, which is missing one of the A's. So it's a whole process of doing actual relationship reviews and check-ins.
Yeah, it's so interesting to go at this with a willingness to talk about our relationships. And I can tell you from my own experience that in the past, I was very much wanting to avoid conversations about relationships. I always thought, oh my God, it was going to be such a big deal, or there are aspects of the relationship I didn't want to look at, or hoping that maybe if I just took the ostrich approach and put my head in the sand, that it would make itself work out somehow. And yet the evidence didn't really support that. But when I found that I was able to openly participate in these things, it really did affect the quality of my relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so people know, we did do a full training. Well, not a full training, not the same extent to which we have in our course, but where we talked a bit about relationship reviews and check-ins. And just so people know, in case they're wondering, radar is the R is review, A is agenda, setting up an agenda. The extra A, which we added, is affirm and connect. D is the actual discussion part, A is the action plan, and the R is reconnect and reward was our addition for that extra R. So it's radar.
Yeah, I like the reward part.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, because otherwise we might say, well, what's motivating me to really do this, right? Why should I actually do this? It feels a lot like work. And maybe there are aspects of it like that, but it's always good to have some reward, right? Why not be able to indulge ourselves a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was number 2. Number 3 is communicate. Oh, our favorite topic, communication. So this is also a good time of the year, and a way of setting yourself up for success is to polish up your communication skills. And if you are visiting family and friends over the holiday, it might be a good opportunity to be aware of any destructive communication patterns that you may be engaging in, and try to work towards more effective communication. So I laugh because I know sometimes, even myself being with family sometimes can be triggering. And I've really had to really think about what I'm saying, what are they really communicating here, and really being aware of the way I'm communicating.
Yeah, you're so right on, right? During the holidays, so many things can be altered and different because there are these expectations and there's all this pressure, self-imposed pressure and stuff. And then we do all this good work during the year, and then we come back to see our family over the holidays, and all of a sudden we fall back in, or we're tempted to fall back into these old patterns, and we might be triggered by a lot of the old things that had been once said, or maybe they're still rather current, and then we find ourselves falling back into these old ways of being. And very often, unfortunately, they are less than the healthiest ways of being. But by following these different things like nonverbal communication, communication attunement, all these other things, they will help us to relearn ways of speaking, so that we go into the situations, we say, here's the triggering point. In the past, I would have just reacted to this, but now I found other ways to communicate, and we maintain our position. And very often we invite the other person to speak in this way. And very often they do join us this way. They will find their way to it. Or if they don't, we say, well, they're a work in progress at the moment. We can have these tools where we come into these holiday situations and we feel less affected by them. We feel as though we are more in control. We are able to really navigate and communicate the way that we're wanting to, in a way that feels best for us, so that we can say, okay, I was able to go through this and I did really well. I was able to maintain effective listening. I was able to maintain nonviolent communication. Nonverbal might be at times, better to say, but I've been able to utilize these tools, and it makes me feel more comfortable. It makes me feel more secure going into these places, because sometimes it is rather taxing.
Yeah, there might be times when you want to be nonverbal and just, keep your mouth shut. But
that's my Freudian.
But I do notice, though, myself, shifting my own communication patterns has also shifted how my parents, in particular my mother, speaks to me. So people tend to, even if, and we can't affect how people are going to speak to us. We can remind them when in a gentle way, when they might say something that maybe is not so generous. But I noticed that my mom mirrors now a bit more my style. and of speaking. And if I, so if I'm speaking in a good way, then it works. But we know that it definitely works in the negative way. As soon as people get their backs up, the other person gets their back
Right.
up. So that's the bad side of mirroring. So it's a good opportunity to practice nonviolent communication skills and active listening. And
Mm.
these are, and as well, I mean, these are two things we teach as well in our courses, and our attunement communication method as well. Well, that one's in our bigger program because that's a more involved process that we go through with our clients. So,
Right, but it is wonderful, right? When we can import our new way of communicating and how it makes us feel more secure, because I know that I'm going to speak from these positions. I know that I'm going to be speaking from the I and the me, and that what you do is going to be less affecting than it might have been in the past. I know I'm going to be secure in that way, and it helps me to be more placid, more calm. And when I'm calmer, well, then they see that, and they also kind of calm down as well, right? So it kind of creates a framework of how we're going to be going with each other, especially in these heated times.
Yeah, I think that's the skill that has paid off the most.
Mm.
If you could just do that, I think it would change a lot of things. Like that's worth the
Well,
$1 million. I think, learning how to communicate, it's changed every aspect of my life, my work life, how I interact with my family, my partners, like with you, obviously that's obvious, but with other people. And yeah. The
awesome.
one mention here too is maybe part of communication is being communicating your boundaries too in those situations. Like if things are if it's too much activity or that sort of thing, and you need to take breaks and that sort of stuff. So being openly communicating your boundaries, and that's another thing that we talk about in our.
Yeah, that is so important in so many different circumstances, right? So let's not just assume that the other person knows what our boundaries are. Let's not just have it implied, but we need to express them. And very often we might have to do it more than once. The person might not be present or aware, whatever the circumstances, but we're always within our rights to announce our boundaries. In fact, we need to do that. We can't assume that the other person has picked up on it, right? So be comfortable in announcing your boundaries. It's good for you. It's good for them.
Awesome. And I'd love to hear in the comments if any of these things are resonating with people, or if there's anything you want to try over the holiday season, especially if you have family that is harder to communicate with or that can be triggering at times. So, so number 4 is build your toolkit. And so really that's what our course is all about, is building a secure foundation for your open or polyamorous relationship. But the specific thing we're talking about here that I think sometimes people don't necessarily have, especially if they're newly opened a relationship, is developing an agreement, a relationship agreement. In our case, we promote and we teach our values-based agreement model, which is agreement's very different than rules. Agreement is something that everybody, agrees to. And so if you don't have one, this is something that I would highly recommend. It does help you feel more secure, and it would be a great thing to start to work on and bring into the new year. And then this agreement can become the basis of your regular relationship reviews.
Yeah, and that's also during the regular relationship reviews, a great time to look at the value-based agreements that we do have in place, and are they still working for us, or do we want them to be modified in any way? Have they become obsolete, or are there some new things that we're wanting to bring in, right? So it's we're always open to review with this, and it should always be collaborative and never feel as though we're having to do it. It feels as though this is what's serving us well.
Yeah. And at this time of the year, there's a lot of people working on like goals for the new year. And often there are relationship related goals or personal goals that people have. So maybe it might be a fun time to, if you have a relationship agreement, to talk about some things that you might want to do differently or add on this year. You know what I mean? And having an agreement in place gives you and a regular check-in time gives you the opportunity to be able to do those things. Do we have any fun relationship goals this coming year? Any thoughts?
Well, that's an interesting question. Not that anything comes to mind at the moment, but it's a wonderful question. Maybe we ought to have a couple of things then.
Yeah.
Do you have any that come to your mind?
I would just like to have some more like fun experiences together.
It seems like all of our experiences are fun together.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I feel like every time we go on a trip, we have some sort of fun adventure. But
Mm.
maybe we try something new. Like I
But
don't know. We
it's
in the pandemic, remember we tried a bit of like shibari tying. Maybe I need to
Mhm.
tie you up a bit in
Oh,
New
that could be
Year.
fun. Sure. Yeah. I'll have to give it some time.
No comment. What were you thinking?
No, I was just thinking. You said that when we go on trips, we always have fun, and that's true. But I think maybe going on a trip lends itself to having fun. Not very often do we go and we think, "Oh, this is going to be horrible. We're going to have to go visit a factory or something, and work at this terrible thing, or go to a salt mine." But you and I often have a lot of fun just doing very little, and I think it's because we allow ourselves to be rather playful and go at it in that way. So maybe it isn't necessary to go on these trips. We can create our own trips, like we did in the pandemic, as you say, right? We got a piece of rope and we stayed home. We played with that, and it was a lot of fun. So there's always opportunity for exploration, curiosity, and playfulness.
Yeah, so that could be a goal for some people, is to be more playful in the new year.
Mhm.
If you feel like you're not more playful, or like if you have quality time as one of your values, then
Mhm.
maybe the new year is a good time to kind of brush that up and say like, hey, let's like bump up our quality time. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
I wonder, as we say that, you say about some people being more playful. I wonder if some playful people, no names mentioned, if we or I should be a little bit more serious at times. No, no, I'll go for the playfulness.
nah.
No.
Okay, so that was number 4, build your toolkit. And finally is get support. So, this is not an easy, people are like, oh yeah, opening up a relationship, no problem. Actually, I don't think does anybody actually say that? I don't know. I think people have misconceptions maybe about how hard it actually is going to be. And
Mhm.
it's amazing that there's so many resources out there. So when we talk about like asking for help and getting support, it's like you don't have to do this alone. There's so much out there, lots of content, maybe too much content. Which is why we developed our Poly Newbies course, is because we wanted to, bring together kind of the main things that you need to do to really set the foundation for having a secure, open, or polyamorous relationship. Because there's so much noise out there, and you know what I mean. But if a course isn't for you, we have a lot of, Andre, we've done a bajillion now videos, training on a variety of topics. And so those are all there on our private Facebook group, Let's Talk Polyamory, or on our YouTube page of the same name. There's also some really great books out there, workbooks, all kinds of things. So, you're not alone. Get help if you need it, and if you want our support, we're here to help you as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because for so many people, asking for help really is the hardest thing. And in fact, it becomes harder than the actual work afterwards, is just making that decision to ask for help. And it's unfortunate because so many male presenting people find it very difficult to ask for help on this subject or any other subject. And yet, it's not an indication of any weakness by any chance. In fact, it's an indication of strength, being able to recognize what it is and then take that action to go forward and say, okay, I need some help with this. It really is there for you. And it's not a question of weakness or anything. It is that we all at times need a little bit of help, and it's good to kind of meet that isolation head on. Right. So if you are having difficulty with that, any issue, go beyond yourself and do this for yourself.
Yeah, I like that you said it's not a sign of weakness, and in fact is a sign of strength. But it's interesting you said about male presenting individuals. Actually, had someone I was in a relationship with had suggested I specifically do a group program for male presenting
Mhm.
people, because he said when he first opened up his relationship, he had a lot of feelings about it, and didn't, was seeking out like a safe environment to have those conversations. And because there's this whole, ego and being strong, and you shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't feel that sort of thing. And I think sometimes it affects people who grew up as male maybe more often. I don't know. That's maybe a generalization, but I think
It is.
I think
It
men are
is.
less likely to seek out the help. Maybe.
Yeah, it is a generalization. They're less likely to seek out the help, and very often they're not as articulate as women right? They don't have those same social circles. But hopefully that's all changing, right? Hopefully, as new men, we are allowing ourselves to participate more in that way, and it will become more accessible to us. But it's out
Awesome.
there for you. So that's awesome.
Okay, great. So here's what we talked about today, the 5-step plan to have a holly poly day and start 2024 feeling secure. That was a really long name. Maybe I could have shortened that. Number 1 is reflect on your year and do some introspection. Number 2 is review. And in this case, we're talking about relationship reviews and check-ins. Number 3 is communicate and brush up those communication skills. Number 4 is building your toolkit. And one of the big tools we suggest is your values-based agreement. And number 5, which we were just talking about, is like reach out and get some support if you need it. You're not alone. There's lots of support out there for you, including us, but a lot of other places too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep talking. Say everything.
Say everything. And if you do want to have, I call it the perfect holiday gift for you and your relationship, we have our Poly Newbies course, which we talk about all these things that we talked about here and more. It's an awesome deal. There's a lot in there. I'm super happy with how that all turned out and how the results people are getting with it. So I want to promote it so people know about it because, I think it's an amazing thing that we did together, Andre.
It was.
I kind of wish we had something like that when we started.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, would have saved a lot of grief and heartache for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we have it. Maybe we were meant to go through that so we understand the issues, right? That's the benefit.
Yeah, for sure. It helps us to be able to relate to others and others to relate to us, right? We've walked this path. We know what it is. We know the missteps and we know where the fortunes lie. And it's all laid out for us now.
Awesome. Exactly. All right. Well, that's Mondays with Tara and Andre. Hope that everyone has a holly poly day and reach out anytime if we can help you.
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay.